Howdy, 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 Zachariah Scott here with another quick Source Filmmaker tutorial. Actually, I'm lying. This one probably won't be quick. And also, you'll notice I said Zachariah Scott. That's actually my name, and it's actually the cooler version of my name. I know I go by Zach Scott a lot. I do it myself, but, you know, it's the cooler version. So if you want to call me Zachariah, that's cool. Anyway, a lot of people have been bitching that I haven't been doing drunk tutorials lately. And so, you know, that's funny. And a lot of people have been asking for me to show people how I've made my spherical planet made of grass particle effect that you've seen in 2 or 3 of my videos. I'll just cue that up now and play that in YouTube. So if you see here, it looks kind of like this. Sorry. It's just a ball of grass here. All the grass faces outward and moves slightly to give it a little bit of just a little bit of wiggle there so it looks natural. Sad story, however. When I lost my hard drive, I lost the particle effect for this grass. So I was planning on doing a tutorial for this particular effect today, but when I went in to recreate the particle, I found that I actually couldn't figure out how I built it. And somebody suggested that I get drunk and maybe that'll jog my memory. And you know what? After an hour of trying to figure it out and not succeeding, I figured, hey, maybe there's something to that. So unlike my normal tutorials, this one will be a bit of an adventure. So I'm just going to actually be drunk and try and recreate that fucking particle. And we'll see if it's successful. And this tutorial might be a train wreck, or it might be awesome. But either way, we're about to go on an adventure. So, as you see here, I have a Source Filmmaker particle system window open. It's got an empty particle, grass particle, with nothing inside of it. I have 2 images here which contain essential information that I used to create the first particle. Because, hilariously, I've actually taught 2 other people how to build this particle back when I had the original source, and I've read through the instructions that I gave to those people, and reading my own instructions, I can't figure out how I was able to teach them how this particle worked. So it's pretty funny. Anyway, I'm just going to jump in and see what I can do. So I have my grass particle here. You'll notice it is totally empty. What I am going to do next might blow your minds. I'm not going to use that particle. I'm going to create a second particle called grass particle grass. Now, it may seem like a dumb distinction, but if I eventually get this reconstructed, you will see a great reason why I did that. So, anyway, I have my grass particle, which I'm not going to use, and I have my grass particle grass, which I am going to use. So, we know this particle is a model, so I'm going to go into Renderer, and I'm going to add a Render Models renderer. Yeah. So you'll see there's nothing here, so I'm going to go in and I'm going to set that up to be the grass that I want. The grass that I want is some really nice grass from CSGO. It's the Aztec grass. Aztec grass. And actually it just comes right up even if I just type Aztec. I've got that in here. If I add an emitter, you will see it when it emit instantaneously. There's some grass. You'll notice 2 things. It is very large and very sideways. So if I go into my system properties for my particle, I can fix that. So right now it's rendering by default 5 times larger than it normally would render. So I'm going to knock that down to 1. So now it's close to its normal size. And it's sideways. In my normals, I'm going to set that to be 1, 0. And that's upside down. So I'm going to set that to be -1, 0. This 0, 0, 0, 0, you know, as it was before, is something that pops up very common in particles and in materials. It's a vector 3, which is basically, it is a value which has 3 inputs, so 3 numbers. In this case, the different numbers on this normal refer to the normals of the particle itself. The normals means it's which direction it faces. So, you know, like if you've heard of the term normal map, it's just referring to directions which it gives the renderer to determine which way it should point things. You'll see that here now. So, you know, I can 0, 0, 0, and it's gone. I can 0, 0, 1, and it's sideways. I can 0, 0, negative 1, and it's the other way. But I've learned from trial and error that I want this middle number, so I want to make that negative 1. Whoops, negative 1. There we go. So I have some grass, and it's sticking up. There's technically 100 grass particles right there in front of us, but we'll get to that later. So this is grass, and it's flat. Unfortunately, I want a grass that's a sphere, so I'm going to go into the initializer, add, and I'm going to add a position within sphere random. So I've created that. What that's going to do is that's going to position my particles around a sphere. I can set maximum and minimum radiuses, so this will be how far out the particle is from the center. I'm going to go with 500 units being the maximum distance, and you'll see that that has kind of created a sphere 500 units wide with grass distributed kind of evenly throughout it. We don't want the grass to be evenly distributed because we don't give a shit about the interior. So I'm going to make the minimum distance 450, or 480 actually. And so now I can go inside of this particle, and you can see that the grass is only emitted on the exterior of this sphere. However, it's all facing up, which isn't too great. And this is the really tricky part, is dealing with the rotation of these particles. Because ultimately, if you look at this video, what I finally ended up getting was... whoops, let me mute that. What I finally ended up getting was a particle which nicely orients every single grass model so that the bottom of the model faces the inside. And that's how I get this kind of lush, solid grass sphere. It's very important that they all orient towards the interior. So first off, even if I get them oriented towards the interior, I know that's a super important thing, but we don't want holes in this grass particle, right? So I'm going to go into the initializer, and I'm going to give these a random radius. So wherever that is, radius random. This lets me randomize how large they are when they start. I'm going to start them at, well, they're going to have a maximum of 3 and a minimum of 1, or 2, sorry. Okay, so now I have a grass sphere that looks kind of circular from some angles, but you can see that all the grass is flat. So we want to fix that. So I know from experience that there is an operator in here, in the operators, called remap. Where is it? Remap direction to CP to vector. So if you haven't screwed around with particles too much, or maybe you have and you just haven't picked up on this, particles have sort of special points that you can manipulate called CPs, or control points. Not what 4chan would call them. But basically, yeah, control points. So you can generate as many control points as you want in a particle within the particle editor itself. It's not so easy to generate them in a referenced or instance particle, which is one of the primary reasons why I recommend that you use the particle editor itself and not a instanced particle array or anything crazy like that. But I'm just going to drop that in, and basically what that's going to do is it's going to generate a point in the center of my particle called control point 0. That's just what it is by default. We can change that. And it's going to use that control point to influence other parts of this particle. So in this case, every single model that this particle is generating is going to calculate its direction towards control point 0 and then do something about it. In this case, I want it to affect their orientation, actually. So the options field for this, the output field rather, affects what side of the particle I'm editing. So, oh god, what have I done? Close that. There we go. Affects what side of the particle I'm editing. So I want this to be my normals, which, as we remember, is the orientation. So I'm going to choose normal. And as you can see, I did it, and now my particles are flipping the hell out. We don't like that. I'm going to use normalize. I think that calculates an average of the values and then simplifies things in some way that makes it nicer to use. Long story short, I found from trial and error that checking the normalized point makes things less broken. As you can see, once I clicked that, it made my particles kind of circular. So This is kind of like a sphere. It's very much not, because it's very chunky and it has holes in it, and that sucks. If I look at it head on, it's different from if I look at it sideways, which is not what we want. We want it to be uniform in every direction. So I'm going to screw around with some effects and settings until I can get it to be what I want. Which is how I have learned 99% of what I know about the particle editor. So, you know. Oh man, what are you doing? Quiet, you. Anyway. Oh, damn it. You broke my train of thought. Stop it! God damn it! Ah! Hang on, I gotta deal with this. Shush! Drunk tutorial in action! Be quiet! It's okay! Yeah, you can't see all this. I'm typing it off on the side. Anyway. Stop it! I want these particles to aim towards the center. Oh god. This is suddenly starting to go horribly. I can recover this. Okay, I got this. I got this. Alright, I'm going to put the timer up here so I can see how long this is going on. I want to cut this off at 30 minutes. If I haven't achieved what I want by then I'm an utter failure. Or slightly too drunk to actually operate the part. Blah, 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 slightly too drunk. So these particles are not aimed towards the center quite like how I want. It looks like the side of the particle is orienting towards the middle, but what I want is the bottom of the particle. This is a deceptively tricky thing to do. Also, you'll notice, like when I said these things orient towards the control point being point 0, if you're in the particle editor, you'll notice there's this control points tab. I can click it, and that shows me every control point that I have in my particle. Hilariously, I am like pointing at the screen and showing you things, but I realize that you can't see my hands, so it doesn't really matter. But yeah, so you can see I have this control point. I can change where it is in this simulation, so I can knock it down, and you'll notice that my particles update. So yep, as I move it away from us. But I want this to be in the dead center of my particle so that everything's pointing towards the center. Awesome. So my grass is kind of bad. Let's get this fixed up. The first thing I am going to try is I'm going to look at my own instructions. So here are the settings for my old spherical planet particle. I have some interesting things here. For some reason, I had the normals set at 1, 1, 1, which is weird. And I had a bit of rotation established. I had a number of 6. I'm not sure what this rotation field is asking for. It's just a float, but it doesn't seem to be a percentage or actual degrees, as I can demonstrate here. So if I go into the corresponding rotation function, if I give them a 1, that rotates them, but not 1 degree. That kind of rotates them like 90 degrees in some direction. I can make them 2, 3. It doesn't seem to be operating by too many logical rules. The number I had was 6, but when I punch in 6, it's still not quite the same as how I had it. And if I set the normals to 1, 1, 1, like I had them in the picture, again, we're still not really seeing what we saw in the video at the start here. We have an interesting... It looks like it might be doing something here, but not quite what I want. One of the really tricky things about this is I'm working with grass. And grass, it's great. I can kind of tell where each grass particle begins and ends, but it is painful to look at because everything kind of just blends together and it is green. So what I'm going to do is temporarily change this model to something where I can very easily tell the orientation of it. In this case, I'm just going to arbitrarily change my model to be a telephone pole. Simply because I know that that is a big thing, and I can easily see how every single telephone pole is oriented. And as you can see, my particles aren't really orienting towards the center. It actually looks like, if you look at this one here, it looks like the particles are orienting sideways towards the center. So in order to get what I want, I need to figure out a way to orient one of these telephone poles such that the bottom is facing the center. So I need to rotate it 90 degrees up. actually finding out what 90 degrees up is a surprisingly tricky thing to do. So the first step in me debugging this is I'm going to knock this down from being 100 telephone poles to maybe 3. So it's very, very easy for me to tell. And if these 3 particles are all facing away from each other, then I know I've succeeded. And if they're not, then I'm still shit out of luck. So the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this, I'm going to turn this sphere off. So I'm going to go into it, I'm going to go to Initializer, and I'm just going to toggle the operator enabled. So now you see I have some telephone poles sticking out to one side. Cool. I want these to point straight up. And actually, if I turn this back on, I want these to point straight up in such a way that I'm facing in this direction, and then I want them to be standing up like a cross. Huh. Now, how the hell do I do that? This is about where things start breaking down. So, first off, I'm going to go into my remap direction to CP to vector, and I'm going to go to my offset rotation, and I'm going to change that to 90, because I want these to be 90 degrees rotated. Interestingly enough, it looks like it rotated it 45 degrees to the left. I'm confused by that. I'm extremely confused by that. So I'm going to turn that back down. So that's head on. And then if I set that to 90, that's 45 degrees. So if 90 is going to give me 45 degrees, then if I double that and go to 180, see, I would have expected that to give me a 90-degree angle, but it clearly has not. So maybe if I make it 45. 2, 1. You may be starting to see exactly why I was having trouble making this. This is a kind of a side effect of the fact that very, very, very few things inside of the particle editor are well documented. So I'm going to start trialing and erroring. Let's see here. So if I go into my system properties, I'm going to punch in some more numbers for the rotation. I'm going to start with 0. Interestingly enough, oh, my grid is not rendering. Let me make sure the rendering is going on for my grid. Awesome. Okay, so that's head on. So 1 would go sideways, 1.5. 1.5 is almost 90 degrees, but in the wrong direction, so 0. Huh. Okay. Interestingly enough, if I set my normal to what you would expect it to be... Whoops. Huh. 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 What? Okay, I'm starting to get confused by this thing. If I turn off this rotation operator, I now have upside-down telephone poles, and that's terrible. Let's see, if I put 90 in there, nope, not going to work. So, might as well just make that 0 again. Let me take a look at my picture. So in my picture, I have my system properties, and I have a second picture, which is my remap direction to CP vector, which is the same vector that we're screwing around with here. I have a couple of other things in here, but we don't need to worry about those. The vector random, the oscillate vector, rotation basic, those are all related to the wiggling of the grass itself, so we don't give a shit about those. All we want to do is make these grasses stick out like spikes. But that's really hard, so let's see what I got. I'm noticing that this remap direction to vector is not how I had it, so I'm going to turn the offset axis to be 1, 1, 1. And it looks like in my picture I had the offset rotation set to 2. However, after doing that, I'm noticing that nothing seems to have gotten better. And if I make that 90, still nothing. 120, 180. This just seems to be entirely random. Let's see, 0, 1, 0. Okay, now they're sticking straight out, but it's basically how I had it before. Huh. Yeah, this is really, really confusing. Alright, so maybe 1, 0, 1. Ooh! Oh. I thought that was nice, but it's still at an angle of some sort. So if I turn on my sphere, and if I turn back up my particle number, 100, I still have particles, but they're not really sticking out from the center. They're just in a big cluster. That's not good. So I'm turning that back off. And ultimately, I want these particles to be aiming straight up. And that's fairly tricky. So I'm going to make the offset axis to be -1, which has nothing to do with anything. So let's try this one. Nope. The first number is not really giving me any useful results either. Let's see, 90. Okay, let's try this again. 1. Whoops. Huh! Ooh. Straight up, eh? I like that. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to turn my sphere back on. No. No, I thought that was good, but it's not good. How the frig did I do this the first time? It's not... So some of these, as you see on the very top and very bottom, are aiming towards the center just fine. And then the bulk of them are aiming towards the center with some sort of weird offset. Now, I'm not sure at all why that is happening. But let's screw with numbers until we get it right. 1, 1, 1, 6. So again, I'm just matching the numbers from my previous diagram. We're at 21 minutes here. I'm going to pause. I'm going to read a document, and then I'm going to return. And I'm back, and after reviewing some old notes, I can only determine that I am very terrible at taking notes. So I continue my endeavor to trial and error this particle into pointing outward. Crap. Okay, let's see. Let's get down into the normals. So 0, 1, 0. Okay, that doesn't do anything. 1, 0, 0. Nope, not what I want. Turn the rotation down to 0. Okay, so facing outward. 0, 0, 0 gives me nothing truly useful at all. So I'm going to go back to 0, -1, which is what I know to be useful if this were flat. I'm suspecting that the problem itself lies within this remap direction to CP. For no reason at all, I'm going to change this offset rotation to 2. Whoops, not 2.0999. 2. That doesn't seem to be helpful, but I'm also going to make this third value 1. Completely at random. And, again, just a waste of time. So I'm going to go to the operator. I'm going to add a rotation random, or not rotation random, rotation basic function, which allows complex rotation behaviors. I only added it because it has the word rotation in it. This is how trial and error works. And clearly it was an error because it's not working. So I'm going to go into the remap direction vector. I'm going to disable that for a minute. Look at all these telephone poles sticking up. And I'm going to go into the initializer and add an alternate version of the remap direction to CP to vector. So I'm going to add an initializer. And I know... So let me take a step back here. So within your particle properties, you have renderers, operators, initializers, and emitters, children, force generators, and constraints. The most important ones are the operators, initializers, and emitters. So the difference here is that an operator is a constantly operating function that continually updates throughout the lifetime of the particle. So if I had an operator that had the remap direction to CP vector and it was functioning correctly, it would continuously make the particles aim towards the center or control point that they're assigned to. Whereas if it was an initializer version of that particle, it would only execute that function when the particle is spawned. So I'm going to add that in. It most likely won't help me in this case, but I am superstitious, so I'm going to try it. Remap initial direction to CP to vector. So boom. Awesome. And right away it has not helped me. I'm going to click the normalize button, and I'm going to make it similar to my old values. So, whoops, this diagram. 2 and 1, 1, 1. So 1, 1, 1, and 2. Whoops. Huh. That is very interesting, because this gave me a completely different result from my... Oh, whoops, sorry. I hadn't set it to normals. Normals. There we go. That's what I like to see. the exact same particle broken in the exact same way as before. Huh. Well, crack among us. Alright, I got 6 minutes to figure this out. Make that 0. Nope. Make that 2. Nope. Make that back to 1. Alright. Oh, nope. 1. Sorry. Huh. I'm going to make that negative 90. Alright, so I have some particles sticking out to one side. Gosh, how do I rotate these on just the right axis? This would be helpful if I knew what the axis orientation of this model is, because I'm not exactly sure which way is X, Y, and Z. And I'm not exactly sure which way these axes align on the offset. So what I'm going to do is pause and research that really quickly. So as you can see, I have my telephone pole here. It has the blue arrow, the red arrow, and the green arrow. You're all familiar with this. I'm going to check out what those arrows mean. So red arrow is position X, green is position Y, and yellow or blue is position Z. I am going to work under the assumption that X, Y, and Z is how these are laid out in the particle itself. So if I look at this telephone pole, X being red, X is the only angle or axis that I really need to give a shit about. So knowing this, I'm going to go back to my particle editor tool. And I have my particles. So since I was previously operating on X, Y, and Z, I'm going to simplify this down to just X and fill in the other two axes with a 0. Immediately, I'm seeing a result of some sort. It is not the result that I wanted, but I can continue on. I'm going to set that offset rotation back down to 0. I'm going to set this down to, whoops, what was that? X is the first one. So I'm going to change my normals to 1, 0, 0. Okay, so still not quite helping me. I'm going to make sure there's no immediate rotation. Position within sphere, don't care. Remap operator, don't care. Okay, so offset rotation 2. Nope, still not. Wait. Yes, still not doing it. Crap. Uh-oh. 3 minutes on the clock. How do I get this done? Alright. Something is not right here. Could it be anything that I'm missing in my diagram? I don't believe it is. So how about rotation settings? Rotation settings are 111 and 6 with nothing else relevant within the particle. So I'm going to go into system properties. I'm going to try again to set it to what I had it set before. So 111. And I'm going to set the rotation to 6. And clearly it is not functioning as I want. So let's go into rotation basic. Is there anything I can use in here to offset the rotation? No. So let's go into initializer. So let's see, is there anything under the rotation tab that I can use here? Rotation random. What about vector random? Let's try vector random. So I obviously want this to deal with a normal vector. 90, 90, 90. That really doesn't have any useful effect at all. Crack among us. So I'm going to throw that out. And I have 1 minute left. All right, do or die. Let's see here. If I can pull this out, that'll be amazing, but I don't think I can. Remap CP orientation to rotation. No. Remap initial direction of CP to vector. No. Remap Q angle in CP to... No, that's definitely not going to help me. Let's try under operators. Oh, geez, time's ticking. Remap CP orientation to rotations? No. Velocity to vector? No. Direction to vector? I already have that. Frig. Huh. Rotation. Rotate orientation relative to CP. Or 2D direction. I'm going to try relative to CP. So I'm going to delete my, or not delete, disable my old operators. So turn that off. And that has given me an interesting result, which is not at all useful. Let's see here. Yaw. Okay, yaw, pitch, and roll. How about roll and yaw? So I'm going to add another version of this. Set control point. I went over time, but I'm going to give 5 more minutes. CP orientation to CP direction. No, sorry. Which one? Orient relative to CP. Rotations. Orient relative to CP. Okay. So this one's roll. This one is yaw. And that really is useless. 90? Ooh. I hope you're all learning a valuable lesson about trial and error and how sometimes you can succeed and fail, and sometimes you can fail to succeed. So let's see here. 190. All the logical things I am trying are not making sense. This is where it'd be very useful for this particle editor to be more well documented. Crap. The sad thing is, I know that somewhere in these two operators and then in the system properties is the exact answer that I'm looking for. But for some damn reason, it's not operating the way I want. Okay, 0, 1, 0. Alright, so normal is normal. And normal is normal. Offset rotation, outfield normal, scale factor 1, axis 1. So when I combine these two things, then everything should be happy, except they're not. How about... Okay, so we know vector random is useless, color random is boring, rotation basic. I'm going to add a movement basic, even though I'm pretty sure it has absolutely nothing to do with anything. Remember, I'm very superstitious. This is the dark side of particles, where you just keep iterating over the same two assets over and over and over again. I'm going to arbitrarily change this control point to 1 instead of 0, and change the sphere position to 1 instead of 0. I'm also going to take my control point 1 and move it off to the side by 1,000 units. Huh. So, that did kind of what I want, which is everything is kind of oriented away from the same point. Actually, not quite true. No, there's a bit of a swirl to it. How do I break that damn swirl? Frig. Ugh. 1, 0, 0. Nope. Uh-oh. 2 minutes again. Negative 90. 2. 0, 1, 0. Negative. This is extremely frustrating, because what I should be seeing is one of these numbers doing what I want, but I'm not. It almost makes me worry that maybe something arbitrarily changed within the source filmmaker particle tool, but a good worker never blames his tools, unless they really, really suck, and I know that I was able to make this within this one tool, so it should be reproducible. So I'll throw a 1 on there. Whoa. Huh, did I have the old one normalized? I did, okay. Damn it. Balls. Alright. So keep that normalization on. I'm just going to make this 99 billion. And that's still not a useful value. Yep. Even at 99 billion rotations, it's still pretty much the same thing. Oh, it looks like it simplified it to 1 trillion, so bring that back down to 2. Make this 101. 111. Okay. Oh. Alright, guys. I have officially failed at this. Yep, there we go. 35 minutes of total sucking. Balls. Now I just feel bad. On the bright side, that particle sphere is a real bitch to work with. So, you know, I'm really just saving myself a big headache down the line. You know, it lights terribly, and, you know, characters, the curvature is such that it's difficult to frame them. So, you know, I saved myself a real headache by failing this time. So it's good, really, that I failed, you know. It's neat stuff. Learn from my mistakes, and hopefully, even though you didn't learn what I wanted you to learn, maybe you learned something about the different things inside of the particle editor, so, you know, hooray! I should have gotten more drunk.